free agency is not underway. NBA free agency, however, is. And even though that is going on, that is the ultimate sign that we are days away from the start of the college football season. Welcome on into the Overtime Drive. He's Dave Shumate. I'm Cole Thompson. Another jam-packed show to close out the month of June and welcome in July the most underrated games in the SEC this upcoming fall. Who is the biggest chaos team that could alter the entire path of the postseason and the conference in general? What about Texas's schedule? What do we like about it? Is there an opportunity for them to somehow fall short? And plenty of other things. But real quickly, if you haven't already, make sure you hit the subscribe button. That way you keep up to date with everything that we're doing here on the channel. Make sure that you follow us on social media, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, at SEC Unfiltered. Follow me at Mr. Cole Thompson, at Dave Shumate SEC, and check out all of our great work found at SECUnfiltered.com. And as always, we are proudly brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. So whether you want to bet on early odds for the upcoming college football playoff, who is your chaos team that you absolutely think is going to hit, or any NBA way too early preseason predictions, go visit FanDuel.com. And when you sign it up at FanDuel.com/SECU, you can win $250 in bonus bets when you win your first $5 bet. It's really simple. It takes 5 seconds. Sign it up today at FanDuel.com/SECU. Schusters, how the hell are you?
Just living it up, Bear. It's that time of year, slow at work, slow during the day job. I know you do more full-time the media stuff, but I have a day job, the regular old 8 to 5 day job, selling recruiting service. So it's kind of slow for us. Been taking kids to daycare. And this is the slow time of the year. You're right. This is the worst time of the year in sports, unless you're just a diehard Major League Baseball fan. So not a lot of anticipation. I guess SEC Media Day is coming up in about 2 weeks. It will be fun. But yeah, I mean, just kind of these are the dark days for the true sports fans.
I still like it. I still think that there's value because if you get to figure out what can we talk about, what are some things that are on our minds. And one of those things that's on our mind is what we're going to start the show off with tonight. Underrated games in the SEC for 2025. Dave has 5. I have 5. These are not the best games. So you're not going to see Georgia versus Alabama on this list. You're probably not going to see Alabama versus LSU on this list. But there are several games that are flying under the radar that need to be talked about more, that could truly change or alter the entire pathway of the upcoming college football season. I'll just throw in an honorable one just to kind of get the ball rolling. I had Vanderbilt versus Auburn. I think Auburn is one of those teams that could be very volatile. They could have one of the better offenses when it comes to scoring this year. But somehow, some way, Clark Lee and more importantly, Diego Pavia finds a way to get a win. And Diego Pavia finds a way to beat up on Hugh Freeze. This game is going to be played in Nashville this year. He's already won 3 different times. Can he go for the sweep in his career? And is this a game that when you look back, maybe Auburn says, we can't hold on to Hugh Freeze anymore. This is the ultimate nail in the coffin. We have to start fresh. Or maybe this is just a game where Auburn ends up winning and we start buying a little bit more stock into, hey, Jackson Arnold's looking really good. Eric Singleton seems to be a really quality player. Cam Coleman's breaking on out into the dude that we believe in. So that's one of my honorable mentions out there.
Yeah, that game's so late in the year. I feel like we will know what Auburn and Vanderbilt are at that point. That game's November 8th. Auburn only plays 2 more games after that.
Sure.
Vanderbilt has 2 games. Yeah, they both have buys. I think at that point we'll know is Hugh Freeze coming back in 26, and we'll know if Vanderbilt's kind of replicating potentially or did better last year. I mean, if I was going to go an honorable – so that's not 5th for you, Bear, huh?
No, that's honorable mention.
Bear just threw an extra game in there. I would say Oklahoma at Alabama. I think that's a game that's not getting a lot of juice. And I'm interested to see how we both interpreted underrated. There's no right or wrong answer. Like you said, you thought Auburn-Vandy was kind of a game that could fit that. Like, I kind of wasn't thinking that. Again, not right or wrong. It's just interesting how we perceive it. I mean, I think Alabama-Oklahoma is so late in the year. Again, I think that game's going to have massive impact. I like both those teams. I know a lot of guys return. So, throwing the revenge factor, I think that's an underrated matchup that I would be surprised if that game is not for some kind of playoff stakes, at least for one of those teams.
I could see it. I think there's a lot to go into that game. And I will say that Oklahoma comes up on this list multiple times for me. So this is not the first time I'm going to be talking about Oklahoma, and it won't be the last time. I'm going to save that game because of it may or may not make the cut. One game that I believe is number 5 and has to kind of be on this radar. I go Kentucky versus Florida. And the reason why is because I just don't know what to make of Kentucky, but they're going to get a signature win this year. I don't know when it's going to happen. I don't know where it's going to happen, but I look at that matchup, that game. They've had their way in the past to be able to at least keep things interesting against Florida. What is Florida at this point in the season? Are we fully sold that DJ Lagway is going to be bought in for this upcoming season? I mean, they're going to have full, complete control this year. Are there going to be just a little bit of inconsistencies with the offensive personnel? And remember, this is going to be a game at home in Lexington. It's the second to last game before they begin a 2-game road trip against both Vanderbilt and Louisville to close out the year. There's something about this matchup to me that screams it's a trap game. Like, this may be, hey, look at Florida. Look at what they've been able to accomplish at this point. They're in a really good spot. Maybe they beat Texas. Maybe they beat Miami. They would have already played against Georgia after the world's largest outdoor cocktail party. And what if that's a game that is really well put together? Like, that is one to where, hey, Florida looks like that roster has taken the next step forward. And then they take an immediate step backwards by losing this matchup. I don't know what is going to happen this year for Kentucky. What I can tell you is that Kentucky, they will have one game, without a doubt, that they will win that they shouldn't. This feels like one of those trap games.
See, I'm not high on Kentucky this year, man. I'm not saying you are either. I don't think they're going to be a good football team. They do not have a lot of returners. Not high on Zach Calzada going into his 10th year of college football. I don't know. Again, that game's late in the year. If Kentucky's just decent, I'm with you. I like the term you use, trap game, because it is sandwiched between Georgia and Ole Miss. So if Kentucky's just decent, I just don't know at that point. Do I think Kentucky's solid? I mean, I don't see really any automatic conference win for them. And then I think Louisville's just going to be better than them at the end of the year. And we saw what Toledo did in Starkville last year. Again, and I'm not saying Kentucky's going to be that bad of a football team as what Mississippi State was last year, but that's who they open up with. I mean, I only see about 3 or 4 for sure. I'm just not as high on Kentucky, but I get you on that one. Let's see. All right, Bear. For me, 5. I think this one, again, this is, I think, how we interpret it off how you just threw your honorable mention in this one. This is when I felt a little weird about throwing it in under the radar, or under the radar would be the Florida at LSU game on September 13th. I think that's not being talked enough about nationally, because I think people forget how early in the season that game is now. Most people were accustomed to that game really being in the middle of the year when it was in Baton Rouge, and kind of towards the end of the year whenever it was rotated to Gainesville. This year, it being week 4? For LSU, it's week 3, 2. I mean, you have to win one of these games at Clemson and against Florida at home. I mean, it's nothing we don't know, but I mean, LSU schedule comes out firing. I think from a true conference game, this one isn't getting talked about enough. And think about what Florida's got to go to the next week. Back-to-back road trips, LSU, then at Miami the very next week there. I feel like the loser of this game is going to not be feeling great heading into the month of October. Felt like they left a little meat on the bone in the month of September. This is a big game, I think, from total league play, from playoff contention. And I think it's just overlooked a little bit because of who these teams play in conference. And I know the Miami game's the next week, but I think LSU Clemson, as it should, has kind of picked up a lot of the steam because it's week 1. People are ready for college football. I think both those teams are going to be very good. But I think people are forgetting just, oh, yeah, that Florida game's moved up on the schedule just 2 weeks later. Like, dang, like both those teams got locked in. So I'm fired up for that one, Barry. It comes in at 5 for me, though, just a little bit.
4, South Carolina traveling to Cumberland to take on Missouri. I think this is a really intriguing game because we don't know what to make of Missouri. They lost their starting quarterback. They lost their 2 top weapons. They have a ton of new replacements defensively. But they're opening the season 6 straight weeks at home. If there's one thing that I would want if I am breaking in a bunch of new players, it's to have the home field advantage. And there is a great opportunity with the next matchup coming against UMass that they will be undefeated if they can continue their pathway when they take on Alabama on October 11th, which, keep in mind, that probably is coming after a bye. Then you talk about South Carolina. South Carolina has the exact same opportunity to be in that same realm of, hey, we're bringing in a quarterback that we truly trust in Lenore Sellers, but we have a ton of new weapons on the offense that we got to kind of figure out who are going to be our difference makers at tight end, at running back. We're breaking in a brand new defense with a slew of new players that are not going to be at the same vicinity that we were last year. But if they win that game and they're able to beat South Carolina State and Virginia Tech and Vanderbilt, They then go play Kentucky before they face off against LSU, which is going to be one of the signature games in college football this year. So in my opinion, when I look at Missouri, they're such an unknown right now. They may come out swinging. Then it may be like a 20-0 lead because if we don't know what Bo Pabula is, we don't know what Kevin Coleman's going to be. We get Ahmad Hardy coming on in. What's he going to provide value in that backfield? Or for South Carolina, hey, Lenore Sellers, he is just torching left and right against this Corey Batoon defense. He is slicing and dicing and making everybody feel like that they're on skates. And now they're up by double digits. And now they're leaving Como with a signature win. And they're going to feel pretty confident going into that matchup in Death Valley. So to me, it's one of those games where there is an opportunity for both of these teams to start off the month of October still undefeated and really control their pathway for the remainder of the year. And we're not fixating enough on it. Eli Drinkwitz has done a really good job of turning this team into back-to-back double-digit win seasons. Can he do it a third time? And then for Shane Beamer, he always hits the over. And the last thing you want to do is give him that momentum going into Cocktober and Nov Beamer. You want him to feel a little bit of the heat early on in September. When he is rolling into those months, best of luck going ahead and playing against South Carolina.
Yeah, I think this game, to your point, Bear, I don't think if Missouri loses this game, I don't think they win double-digit games. And I think if South Carolina loses this game, they don't hit the over. I think both those things.
I can see it.
What?
That South Carolina doesn't hit the over. I can
that's
definitely
what I'm saying. I think this game, I had this game a little spoiler. I had this higher up on my list. I think it's a very important one. Because I think on a scale of 1 through 10, Bear, how confident you both these teams roll in here undefeated into this game?
8.
Yeah. I mean, unless Missouri drops it to Kansas or South Carolina drops one to Virginia Tech.
And I don't think either happens.
No, I don't think either. Both these teams I would expect to be undefeated rolling into that one. So, yeah, I agree with you. I actually got this one a little higher, so we'll see that one coming up later. Next one for me here, Bear. Speaking of the Missouri Tigers, I'm going to go Missouri at Auburn. Yeah, I'm going to go Missouri at Auburn. I think we're really going to fight. Like, by this point, by this game, we just talked about it. Let's just say they lose to South Carolina, 4-1, heading into a bye, lose to Alabama, 4-2. Your season is kind of teetering on a brink at that point from again, not you're having a losing record or anything, just from like what you would truly want the goal to be. At 9-3 with 3 losses at that point, 4-3, they're not making the playoffs. But Auburn at Auburn, that would be another signature win, a big-time win heading into this. I mean, for this season for Eli Drinkwitz. And I mean, tell us the offense replaced quite a bit. Obviously, they lost most of the production. So, I mean, that's why it's a little bit of a concern. But my under the radar game here at 4, I just thought this would be an intriguing one because I think Missouri's kind of grouped in with Auburn. Is I think one of these teams of Auburn and Missouri is going to kind of get in that 9 to 10 win range this year. And I've said on our show before, Bear, you can tell I like Auburn a little bit more than some people this year. It could end up being wrong, but just how I feel, I think this is a big game for both teams.
3. I also have an Auburn game, but I have them playing on the road against Texas A&M. I think that this is one of the best matchups that will determine a pecking order in the college football playoff realm. Texas A&M, for my money, has arguably the best returning offensive line in terms of what I know, what I can expect. 4 dudes are back. I know what their offense is going to be this year. They are a ground and pound, throw it down the middle, Lavian Moss, Reuben Owens, you throw in Amari Daniels. It's going to be a great run-oriented system. And then you add in Marcel Reed with that athleticism. And let's say he improves as a passer. Let's say that he gets more consistent on the intermediate throws and on the deep ball accuracy is slightly better. You got 2 weapons. Casey Concepcion, I think, is going to hit. I think Mario Craver is going to be a very solid contributor. I like what they have at the tight end position. I like what they have defensively because of Mike Elko as the coach. And I know that a Mike Elko defense is always going to be ferocious. They're going to do what they can to get after the quarterback. And they're going to play physical in the secondary because they upgraded. They went in the portal and they brought in different guys, whether it be Julian Humphrey or they targeted multiple names when it comes to the latest recruiting class. And so A&M, I have a good understanding about who they are as a program in this year. But I look at Auburn and I think they're untapped potential. I really do, because of what you have at quarterback could be an upgrade over Peyton Thorne if the turnovers are depleted. And that's going to be the biggest selling point for Jackson Arnold. Can you have a team where your season is not hindered by the turnover ratio. Auburn last year offensively was not a terrible team. They were just terrible in two major assets: red zone offensive execution and turnovers. They're going to have two great wide receivers in Cam Coleman and Eric Singleton. They're going to have two really good backups in place. They're going to have a solid offensive line. I like their defense a lot because of what DJ Durkin provides. But this game at Kyle Field last season, 4 overtimes decided, that being the signature win for Hugh Freeze in year 2. Mike Elko needs to be able to set the tone. Keep in mind that for Texas A&M, after this game, you play Florida, you play at LSU, you play at Missouri, South Carolina, Texas. You need this win. And then if you're Auburn, you kind of need this win as well because of you get Georgia, but you get them at home. Missouri, you already mentioned it. At Vandy, versus Alabama. This is one of those games that we're looking back. Hey, 9-3, Hugh Freeze, you're proving that you were the right coach. You got a good win. It all comes down to Jackson Arnold. Can he not be turnover prone? And can we see that next step forward for Marcel Reed? I'm honestly really intrigued for this game because the other thing is, what happens if you do end up seeing a little bit of a setback from a Jackson Arnold? Do you turn to Deuce Knight at that point and say, hey, last season we turned to Marcel Reed when they played LSU. He won us the football game. Can we do the exact same thing, but flip it, go to the 12th man, go put in a mobile quarterback, have him run it a lot more, and get us a win when we go ahead and enter the month of October?
Yeah, I think A&M, if they split the Auburn-Notre Dame games, they're going to go into November, I think, with a chance to make the playoffs if they won out. Missouri, South Carolina, Samford, and Texas. I think if you split the Auburn-Notre Dame games.
They could. They very well could. And I think this is a game. This, to me, is a game for Texas A&M. You really want to put yourself in a great position to enter the month of October where you get to welcome in a Florida team, where you get to face off against South Carolina kind of and figure out what they are as an identity. This is one of those games to where you get that win. We probably feel a lot more confident that 8-4, maybe a running joke, but it's no longer the same capacity of what we used to believe.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that one. Let's see. For me, I got Oklahoma at Tennessee is my next one for the third one. Again, I think it's kind of later in the year. November 1st, opening up the first day of November for us there. Last year, we remember the hype just because of Heupel going back to Norman. I don't know. I mean, you just look at this, and I think Oklahoma is going to be much improved. So I feel like this is a game that every kind of team that has that signature season, that much improved season, has that big road win. I could see this being for Oklahoma. And for Tennessee, the schedule, probably the second easiest conference schedule outside of Missouri. This is one of your bigger games. If they won this game, you'd feel like we just talked about A&M rolling into really the month of November, or from the rest of November for Tennessee, having a chance to really go play for the college football playoffs. Maybe there's not much drop off on the offense. Maybe the defense just drops off a little bit, and you throw in the recipe of, or you throw in an easy schedule in that recipe. You never know. You get some things break your way. You win some close net games. Tennessee could be in the playoffs again. That's the only thing that keeps my head above water with them a little bit from a playoff contender bear, is that schedule. Because, again, I don't care what anyone says. Long-term, what Heupel did, letting go, cutting bait with Nico Iamaleava is going to be good for the program. For 2025, I don't really think – I think it – there's no way you can convince me you losing your returning starting quarterback and your transfer portal quarterback that you brought in doesn't get a spring. It's going to improve, especially with the people you lost. I think the goal was to kind of be either similar to last year or a little bit below. This will be a good defense against Oklahoma. Philger will know a lot about both these teams at this point. It'll be a big game.
I see in the comment section Florida versus Texas as one of these games. I'll be completely real. That, to me, is one of the best games in college football, which is why it's not on my list. But on my list, which is a very underrated game in my opinion, Dave, I got South Carolina hosting Oklahoma because of what happens the week before. Oklahoma is playing in the Red River Shootout. By the way, that's what it's called. Anybody who calls it the Red River Showdown or any other name, they're stupid. They have no idea what they're talking about. Go ahead and back that up. You also have LSU hosting South Carolina. So these are two teams that are going to be coming off of not only very aggressive games, but they could be coming off of a loss or they could be coming off a signature win. How do you respond in this moment? For my money, Lenore Sellers and John Mateer are two of the best quarterbacks in college football. They are certainly two of the top 5 quarterbacks in the SEC going into this year. I believe that both these teams have one wide receiver that could break out instantaneously. For Oklahoma, it's Deion Burks, fully healthy. For South Carolina, it's Nick Harbor. I really also like what they have as the secondary wide receiver. Mazeo Bennett, I've been very high on for a while. I think that he will have a better sophomore season. I think that Giovanni Gibson coming on in from Arkansas Pine Bluff is going to be a really good complementary piece. And both of these teams are going to be led by coaches that last season trusted their defense to kind of bail them out of trouble a lot. And the bottom line is that South Carolina jumped off to a very early lead. South Carolina was able to set the tone in Norman. Well, Oklahoma, if they can do the exact same thing with John Mateer and just a couple of deep shots to Giovanni Gibson or to Deion Burks, that game could get completely out of control. And I'll be completely real with you, Dave. This is a trap playoff game, in my opinion, because of the loser of this game may end up going 9-3. But what if both these teams are sitting at 9-3? We're back to having the conversation with Alabama versus South Carolina. Oklahoma could have such a daunting schedule to close out the year, but because they went 9-3 and they got this win, even if they didn't look the part and South Carolina was rolling at the right time, well, head-to-heads have to matter at some point. So if there's only one spot left on in, sorry, South Carolina, they're going to be passed up, even if they were playing like the better team. Both these teams have very good defensive stars that I think are going to break out this year. Both these teams walking in a bunch of new transfers. I also like that Brett Venables is calling the shot. And I think this has the atmosphere to be one of the best games in college football this season, especially if South Carolina's defense can stay relevant and be more than just a Dylan Stewart, and Oklahoma's offensive line can be better underneath Bill Beatonbow. Like, I honestly love that this game is going to be played at Willie B. I think it's going to be one of the best environments in college football on October 18th. This is the one game I am circling to saying it is a must-see event because if I feel really good about South Carolina and Oklahoma going into this game for their playoff chances, one of their playoff dreams are coming to an end that night.
That's a must-win for one of them because you're sandwiched between such a tough three-game stretch for both these teams. Really a four-game stretch. I mean, these are one, especially kind of maybe puts a little more pressure on South Carolina because it's at home. Hate giving up one of those, but you're right, Bear. It's a good one. My number two, we already talked about it. It's South Carolina at Missouri. I just think that early in the year, I asked you how confident you were both these teams would be rolling in undefeated. Unless Missouri dropped one to Kansas at home, which I don't see. I mean, maybe. Give Lance Leopold and them, they do a phenomenal job potentially, but that wouldn't be good news for Missouri, and that would put a real shockwave into that season so early. But and then for South Carolina, I'd expect them to be undefeated as well heading into that one, unless Diego Pavia and the boys get them early, or Virginia Tech. But I think both of them won't be undefeated. But we talked about this one, so that's my number two.
Number one, and I told you that they were going to be on this list twice. I almost went Tennessee versus Oklahoma. But I think if there's another team that could be in the running for the college football playoff, and I stand on this, I think Ole Miss is still going to be relevant this year. I really do. I think that Ole Miss is not getting talked about enough. They once again are
8-4 relevant. Relevant towards what?
I think that 10-2 is still a possibility. I'm not ready to give up on that 10-2 trade.
Maybe, yeah. That defense, like you're higher on their defense than I am. I just don't think they're going to be very good on defense. And I don't blame Pete Golden. I just think it's one of these transition years. They lost so much.
Here's my thing. I don't know what to make of Austin Simmons. What if Austin Simmons is as advertised and he builds that rapport with Caden Lee and he has a really good secondary receiver with Harrison Wallace and Luke Haas is as advertised. And after last season, when they went out in the portal and they got so much defensive talent and everybody said, shame on you for missing the college football playoff in a year where nobody expects him to do anything. Lane Kiffin does it. That's just the Lane Kiffin mantra. When there's no expectations, he comes out of the blue and he just pile drives it into your face and he makes it work. I'm going to say that real fast. He does a great job of setting himself up to always get that signature win. I didn't think anything of them in 2023. I thought, okay, they're going to be an 8-win team. Jackson Dart back for another year. Trey Harris is a pretty good wide receiver. They got 11 wins. They set a school record for offensive points per game. They were one of the more complete teams in the SEC. And meanwhile, Oklahoma, I look at them, look at their schedule, Dave. They're going to be faced off against Texas. They're going to be faced off against South Carolina. And then they face off against Ole Miss. That game at Memorial Stadium, to me, it just has so much stock of, hey, you got to win against Texas in the Red River Shootout. You were able to go ahead and beat up on South Carolina. You don't end up losing games where you should be favored. If they were to win both those games or even split the series with Texas and South Carolina, I believe that they would be favored at home. They win that game, how do you not feel confident when they go play against Tennessee? Or they at least split the series between Alabama and Missouri. And now 10-2 is on the table. 10-2 is good enough to be in the college football playoff hunt. And they may get that extra week just to rest on up before they figure out who they're facing off against. And the same thing goes for Ole Miss at this point. Ole Miss at this point in the season would have already faced off against Tulane, LSU, and Georgia. And if they were to go play extremely close or at least competitive against Georgia in Sanford Stadium, what if they were able to continue that success, welcome in at Vaught Hemingway Stadium, and then carry on this game when they face off against Florida and Mississippi State to close out the year? Keep in mind, Dave, their last 3 games, the Citadel, Florida, Mississippi State. Not enough people are talking about Ole Miss versus Oklahoma. Vaught Hemingway Stadium. This is going to be a game that I think has massive.
It's in Norman, Bear. It's in Norman.
My bad. You're all right. It is in Norman.
It was close last year in Oxford.
Yeah, my bad. In Norman.
It's in Norman.
This is going to be one of those games that we talk about in such a prominent light. 100%. I think John Mateer could be, at this point, locking in the Heisman Trophy or at least a spot in New York City. I think Austin Simmons can kind of show the world, hey, I was just waiting my time. And Lane Kiffin can absolutely have one of the best moments in college football. I know I messed up last year. I got it done this year.
Yeah, it's the week right after Georgia. That'll be interesting. Usually a physical game. Bleeds on me. Man, that's too bad. It's tough. It's too bad. Tough ass back-to-back road games right there. Georgia and at Oklahoma. Woo! Yeah, no, but I agree. This could be a big one. Yeah, both these teams will be making their money during this stretch. You got Ole Miss, Georgia, Oklahoma, South Carolina, and you got Oklahoma here, South Carolina, Ole Miss, Tennessee, and Texas before that. Jeez Louise. Number 1 for me, I'm going to go Auburn at Oklahoma.
Okay.
I think we talked about Oklahoma a ton here, but again, because they play so many top teams, and again, I think we both think they're going to be pretty good this year, so that makes sense. Auburn, we talked about them a lot. I just think this is the first conference game for both these teams. Both these teams have 2 big non-cons, Auburn at Baylor, and then Oklahoma hosting Michigan. If both these teams could go in undefeated, I think at this point, either way, we're going to know a lot about these teams heading into really the thick of the season. Both these teams win or lose. We'll know a lot about how it's going to shape up to the end of the year. Again, I'm higher on Auburn than I think most. I think they're closer to 9 than the 7-win mark. And I think this would be a type of win they could potentially get that could springboard the rest of the season. And if you're Oklahoma, your schedule's so tough. These are the ones you can't afford to lose at home, even though I think Auburn's going to be improved. So I think it's a very big game very early for both teams after 2 big non-conference tests.
So what I find funny is you are very high on Auburn this year as a potential dark horse of the playoff, right?
Yes, correct.
I would say I am a lot higher on both Oklahoma and Ole Miss to go to the playoff, which is why most of those games are going to be very prominent. Here's the bottom line. Whether you agree with Dave or you agree with me, you can always agree that going to FanDuel.com/SECU is the number 1 place for you to guarantee that you lay down that money. So whether you think that Texas, Oklahoma, South Carolina, Ole Miss, or even Auburn could go on the epic run to Atlanta, hoist up a conference title, and then epically continue to push their way towards a college football playoff national championship, go do so by visiting FanDuel.com/SECU. Get in on those lines early. The last thing you want to do is be late to the party and not being able to cash in. Plus, you can do so with same-day parlays. You can do so with build your own same-day parlay hubs or choose from any popular SGP already made for you at the Parlay Hub. It's really simple. It takes 2 seconds. Go visit FanDuel.com/SECU. And as an added bonus, when you sign on up, you can go win $250 in bonus bets by simply laying down a $5 bet. So you lay down $5, you win that bet whether it be on the NBA postseason next year, the college football playoff, a random baseball game going into this weekend, whatever it is, go visit FanDuel.com/SECU. Sign up today, join in the madness, and make sure that you lay down your bets to prove that you know everything about college football. Disclaimer: must be 21 or present in select states and 18 plus in DC. For his online real wager money, only $5 deposit is required. Bonus issued with non-withdrawable bonus bets which expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. FanDuel is offering online sports wagering in Kansas under the agreement with the Kansas Star Casino LLC. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit FanDuel.com/RG. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut or visit gamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York. Dave, let's talk quickly about the chaos teams in college football. And by the way, if you're watching this, we have over 600 people watching right now. Make sure you like, hit subscribe, follow us on social media at Dave Shumate SEC, at Mr. Cole Thompson. Ton of content coming on the channel that you don't want to miss out on anytime soon. Chaos teams for 2025. What does this mean? It means a team that could completely change the path of how we view the SEC. It could be as simple as, hey, they're going to be really, really good and nobody's talking about them. Or it could be, we're hyping them up. They are supposed to have a top 10 returning defense. They're supposed to have the can't miss quarterback. They're supposed to have a coach that is coaching for his job and feels like, hey, you know what? He didn't live up to expectations. Anything could work as a chaos team. It could go good, it could go bad, but they control a lot of the narratives around the SEC. So Dave, I'll let you start. Who is your chaos team for 2025?
I'm going to go back to my number one game. I've been going back all day when we talked about this topic. We're going to go who I was going to go with. I'm going to go with the two teams that are playing in my number one underrated game. You could make a case for either one. In this case, I'll throw Auburn in there. I think it's either Auburn or Oklahoma. To me, I think it's kind of obvious from a standpoint of chaos, like who kind of, in my opinion, again, everybody kind of interprets it different. To me, the chaos means like a team who's kind of at that point in schedule factors in. No one's really hyping them up. It's kind of that mid-tier potentially that could go make the playoffs or go 9-3 or at least ruin someone's chances a little bit. I'm just going to go Auburn Bear here just because, again, I think it's as talented as they've been since 2019, 2020 across the board. I don't think it can get any worse for Jackson Arnold last year. I think he's going to have better receivers around. The offensive line's as good as it's been since 2019 at Auburn. Again, it's something towards Oklahoma. I don't think the injury luck can be near as bad. I just don't think it can be. I think it's a beneficial schedule for Auburn. They get Georgia and Alabama both at home. Can they get one of those teams at home? I mean, again, if Auburn was going to go make some surprise playoff push, win 9 games, I feel like they would need to get one of those games. I think Auburn's that chaos team a little bit. Oklahoma earlier in the season, again, I just think there's a lot of swing games there. Auburn could be that surprise team. And again, I went 1A, 1B. I just think Oklahoma right after them there too, just because they play so many of those tough teams in the league because the schedule's tough again. And again, even if they're just good themselves and get one of the 4 or 5 spots from the SEC, that's going to take out somebody else, like an Alabama, a Tennessee, Ole Miss, South Carolina, teams like that are really trying to compete for that. So I think those are the two obvious teams for how I kind of interpret the chaos team, who's kind of in that middle ground, trying to push forward, make an improvement. People would be pretty surprised if both teams made that or if that said-so team made the playoffs.
Oklahoma was number 2 for me. I think Oklahoma has the schedule that is so volatile that they may end up being 8-4, but they could get a couple of upset wins that derail another season for, say, an Alabama again, or maybe it's it's LSU, whoever it is. Florida, to me, is the ultimate chaos team in 2025, and it's because of what they have at quarterback and the way their schedule pans out. I think DJ Lagway, at his potential, his peak, can be QB1 in the SEC. I've seen him up close in person. I know what the talent is. I know how quickly he can adapt to Billy Napier's system. And I think that the fact is, last season, even in that minute level of reps before he took on over for Graham Mertz, it allowed him to build up his confidence. And then the way he closed out the season, he was playing with that it factor. Well, I feel really good about the wide receivers that they brought in. J. Michael Sturdivant is not getting talked about enough as a really sneaky transfer. I think he can be that big-bodied guy. I think he can be that vertical threat. He adds tremendous value, I think, as a blocker. I think you also got to throw in what you landed with the recruiting cycle. I've been high on Dallas Wilson from the second that he touched down in Gainesville. When he left Eugene and came on down to the Swamp, I said, you know what? Watch this kid break on out. He had over 100 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns in the spring game. And I get it. It's a spring game, but I'm going to buy into that stock. I'm going to buy into that offseason hype. I like Nashawn Montgomery. I like that they're going to have a fully healthy version of Trey Wilson. Vernell Brown, I think, could be a really, really, really good player. Aiden Mizell, I think, could be that great vertical threat. And I think their offensive line is going to be better than advertised. Jake Slaughter, for my opinion, is one of the better centers in college football, if not the best center in college football. I like what they have in terms of Bryce Lovett at the right tackle spot. I think Hayden Hansen could be pretty good. I think that Keandre Harris could be pretty good. Austin Barber could be really good. I think Jaden Bach could be easily the best running back in college football this year. I'm very high on his upside. I think that the fact that he's not splitting reps with Montreal Johnson anymore is going to do wonders. And you bring in Jacoby Jackson, who's a really good secondary option. And you could throw in probably as your number 3 guy, Treyon Webb. The defense, I think, is also going to be better. I like Ron Roberts being fully in control of this unit over than splitting reps with Austin Armstrong. I think that does wonders. And then look at their schedule. They may end up having a 5-7 finish. But what if they beat LSU? 6:30 on the road, ABC. They carry that momentum going into the Miami game, and they beat Miami. And then just God forbid, people are not paying enough attention. That Texas game, I'm actually more concerned for Texas against Florida right now than I am against Ohio State.
What if Lagway isn't healthy, though, is my question to you.
And that's the thing. That's what makes them a chaos.
That's where I've heard that it's not. That's, again, you're saying it's ceiling. Yeah, everybody thinks for that. But that's my concern. Can he make it through the whole season?
But that's what makes them the chaos team. Can he make it through a whole season? If he does, then by all means, say they beat Texas and they carry that momentum. Then they face off against Georgia. And it's the world's largest outdoor cocktail party. And we don't know what Georgia's going to be. This may be the weakest Georgia team that we've seen. And they get that win. And then they get to go ahead and face off against Kentucky and Ole Miss. And they do what they always do against Tennessee, which is beat them in the swamp. And now we're talking about 10-2. And now we're talking about, hey, Billy Napier, we gave him an extra year. He figured things out. He was able to stabilize the offense. He brought in the right recruits. We're winning in the state when it comes to keeping as many players inside as possible. And we've turned this program into a sustainable success. When Florida is at its peak, it can be one of the best teams in college football. But I also can see a scenario, Dave, where you don't have a healthy DJ Lagway.
Harrison
the turnovers
Bailey,
become constant. You are putting yourself in a position where you're unable to run the football on the right side. Your defense gives up far too many explosive plays, and you lose that momentum after the Texas game. Let's say you lose back-to-back-to-back. LSU, Miami, Texas. Your season's over in terms of going to the college football playoff, but you still have 7 more games. But let's say the buy-in's not there anymore. So they could be the ultimate chaos team.
All right, Barry, let me ask you, what are they after their 5th game? What's their record?
I think 4-1 right now.
4-1.
I think 4-1. I said this on another show, and I'll say it today. I think that Texas will go 11-1 this year. I think they will have 1 loss, and that will be to Florida. That's it. I think of that right now.
So you think Florida beats LSU?
I think Florida beats LSU. I do. I think LSU.
That's a bold take, man. You're high on both.
I think Florida can beat LSU. I do.
Oh, they definitely can. I mean, hell, they did it last year. No, you're right. They definitely can.
That's what makes them the most chaotic team, because everything is possible. Because then you look at it from this perspective. Florida loses to Florida loses. They lose everybody. They lose Lagway to an injury, and the wide receiver play is insufficient. And let's just say Billy Napier's fired. They're done. It's a terrible roster. Well, what then happens is that becomes a must win for Ole Miss if they want to make the college football playoff. That becomes a must win for Tennessee if they want to make the college football playoff. And what if that propels them over the top to that win? And the reason why I say the Texas game is that Texas last year played against a Florida team that didn't have DJ Lagway in that matchup, so they absolutely kicked the crap out of them. They're going to be playing in the swamp. They're going to be playing, hopefully, with a healthy DJ Lagway, and Arch Manning is going to have another major road test. I think that there is so much stock in this game for Texas and for Florida. I could see Florida easily walking away with the dub.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be a big opportunity. Yeah, Florida can split. I mean, a sneaky game is week 2, too. I think South Florida's sneaky.
Again,
before that trip, before Baton Rouge.
There's
there's always some close random non-conference game like the first 2 weeks, I feel like, for teams in the league every year. I get off topic. It's just when I'm looking at their schedule now. But you're right, Bear. I mean, it's not out of this world to think 4-1 after their first 5 heading to College Station. I mean, again, if they were to beat LSU like you have it, yeah, they would. Man, that'd be it'd be as good as you could draw up right there for Billy.
But think about this. They could also lose to LSU.
They could lose all 3 of them. I mean, they could be 2-3 after that.
But they could lose to LSU, beat Long Island, beat South Florida, beat Miami, beat Texas. They could easily do that.
Yeah, they could do that.
I think that's just as possible.
I think that's probably a little more realistic. Yeah, I think that's probably if all you told me was they were 4-1 after 5 and I had to guess the loss.
Wait, my bad. I got that mixed up. I have them beating Texas. I have them losing to LSU right now. That's my bad.
I think that's the most realistic if you told me 4-1. I mean, not saying that. I mean, again, they beat Florida. Florida beat LSU last year, so it's definitely possible for sure. Especially
and again, think about just think about this for a second. It's a close game. It's like 9-3 in this matchup, or 10-3. 1 touchdown's been given up, and all you need is DJ Lagway to get that it factor drive, like he had last season against LSU, like he had last season against Ole Miss. That might be enough. Again, you don't need a lot. You just need to get by the skin of your teeth. This may be one of the most hard-fought games out there. I like that there is a more veteranship feel for Florida's defense this year. And Texas is going to have the best defense in the SEC for my money. Them and Alabama are a cut above everyone else going into this season right now. So it's going to be a major test, I think, for both DJ Lagway and for Arch Manning.
Yeah, I'm just Florida's that team overall, Bear. I'm just totally not. I'm not saying good or bad, pros or cons. Florida, I just don't know with the health of the quarterback. It's hard to. You won't know that 100% until we start playing football. So it's hard to go predict their games. Because you do make a game. They could go either way. I mean, you can say that about a lot of teams. But I mean, look at Oklahoma last year. They weren't good, but they ruined Alabama's season, or one of the reasons why. So no, I mean, I get the chaos there. Yeah, Florida's not a bad one either. It's just all comes down to Lagway. Can he make it through a season healthy, an entire season?
Honestly, if he can get through the Texas game, then you feel really good about maybe the rest of the schedule before you face off against Georgia.
I mean, you never know. But
that's the thing. You don't.
There's freak non-contact stuff. It never happens.
I also think Missouri can be a chaos team in terms of just, hey, they may end up being a walking dud because I don't know what to expect from Bo Pelini.
Yeah.
Like that could be chaos. I think that Ole Miss could be a chaos team because there's no expectations this year. Texas A&M may be the chaos team because of, hey, what if their offense actually is sufficient? They were 7-1 going into that South Carolina game. Like they were 7-1 in that matchup, and then everything fell off the wagon.
Yeah, the SEC's got a group of teams that have kind of like, again, I don't think Vandy's going to be a chaos team. I don't think Kentucky is. I don't think Mississippi State is. I don't think Arkansas is. I feel pretty confident in those 4. You're right. You can make a case for like Ole Miss, naturally, like we did Florida, Oklahoma, and Auburn.
Like, review, hit subscribe. Make sure that you're following us on all social media channels. Speaking of which, I see H Post is in the comments section losing his mind because I'm picking against Texas on anything. So let me just go ahead and set the record straight. I defended Texas earlier this week because I didn't like what Steve Spurrier had to say about the situation going on in Texas. So recently he was doing an interview and he was talking about how good is Texas going to be in 2025 with Arch Manning. And his quote was, if Arch Manning was so good, why would he not have started more games over Quinn Ewers? And keep in mind, Quinn Ewers was a 7th-round pick. So I'm here to go ahead and debate all of this. My biggest takeaway is Quinn Ewers was never getting benched. End of story. Just end of story right there. Keep in mind that Quinn Ewers, even if he was the worst of the 3 quarterbacks on the roster, in some people's mind, he just led his team to a college football playoff appearance the year prior. He set a record in the Big 12 on his way out with the Longhorns for the most passing yards in a conference championship game. He marched into Alabama in week 2 with a Nick Saban-led team, not a team by Kalen DeBoer, not a team by Mike Shula, a Nick Saban-led team, and led the Longhorns, a Big 12 roster by many people's standards, to a double-digit victory. He was able to play up to the standard against Oklahoma 2 years prior. He was the most sought-after recruit, and he had earned the respect from everybody inside that locker room, including his head coach, Steve Sarkisian. So even if you believe that Arch Manning has more talent and is much more a better fit for the style of offense that you want to see underneath AJ Milwee and Steve Sarkisian, the fact of the matter was you were never going to bench Quinn Ewers bearing an injury. That was it. And he handled business against every single person that he faced off against except one team. One. Georgia. And even still, his team was so good that you just needed to play sufficient football. He was sufficient enough in the second half against Washington in the college football playoff. He was sufficient enough against Arizona State in double overtime, connecting with Matthew Golden, connecting with Gunnar Helm. There's so much that when you look at in terms of what Quinn Ewers was, he had earned the respect of the locker room. So I get it. See, Spurrier can say whatever he wants about Arch Manning and if he's not to par or, Quinn Ewers was a national championship away if they just benched the quarterback or that Quinn Ewers was a 7th round pick. I'm sorry. Quinn Ewers was never getting benched. He could have been an undrafted free agent. He had earned the respect out of what he had done over the last 2 years to be put on the wayside for Arch Manning to come on in as QB1 in 2024. So can we stop with this BS, this malarkey that he was ever going to be replaced by Arch Manning? Arch can still be a really good quarterback this year. He can be better than Quinn. But you know what? Quinn had earned that respect. And he was never going to be replaced after 2 years of what he did in Austin.
No, Barry, these Sooner fans get you fired up, dude.
It's not even Sooner fans. It's just the fact that it's beyond baffling that we're talking about Steve Spurrier, who, by the way, would rotate quarterbacks all the time. He would never have a consistent identity at the quarterback position. And it's just like, you weren't doing that. You weren't. You were always going with Quinn. Quinn had already...
He would have a foundation. He just had he was like a damn pitching coach. Like he would have a short leash that no one else would have. He was Doug Johnson and I think Jesse Palmer. He rotated in the 90s when I first started. I mean, it's kind of my first memories of SEC football, if I'm being completely honest with you. But no, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't take Spurrier's comments to heart. I mean, Spurrier's kind of a troll anyways.
It's like that was his shtick too, is that he always would poke the bear. Like Lane is the closest thing that we got to it right now because of social media. Because
think about it. He owned a Manning during his days at Florida.
So it's like, why is he ever going to give credit to them because of, hey, I kicked the ass of Peyton when I was there. But like, this is the same dude that benched Steven Garcia in a game, who was the best quarterback that South Carolina had probably before Lenore Sellers came out there, or at least Spencer.
Connor Shaw. Don't disrespect Connor Shaw.
Okay, fine. It's Connor Shaw. Connor Shaw is fair. That's a very fair
Garcia guy.
That's a very fair one. But he benched Steven Garcia, and I'm like, you really want me to
listen? He was rotating them too.
You really want me to listen to that dude? Which, by the way, let me also just throw this out there. This is a different time period in college football. You need that consistent quarterback. You can't be doing the rotation.
No, you do that now. Yeah, Spurrier couldn't do that now. He didn't really have a relationship with the quarterback. Yeah, people would be transferring on you all the time.
Like the only quarterback that last year probably would have been happy playing in that system was DJ Lagway because he was kind of doing that.
Let's think about it, Barry. Who has been in a situation in the past that has been better than the backup that was on the roster ended up being overall better than the guy that was in front of me? You get weird situations like Tennessee in 98. T. Martin, the year after Peyton Manning left, won a national title. Now, was T. Martin better than Peyton Manning?
Martin better.
No. But they got lucky in that Arkansas game, Tennessee. They did win more with T.
What about Cardell Jones over JT Barrett? Because JT Barrett led them to the season, and then Cardell Jones got to win the national title.
You got Mac Jones and who?
Tua, but you would take Tua.
I mean, if you made people pick, you pick Tua.
I got one. You would probably say Bryce Young was a better quarterback than Mac Jones, but Mac Jones was so good that he still led his team to a national championship.
Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to think of somebody who had Yeah, you don't have a lot of instances of the
Chris
season
Leak.
being better next year. Who?
Chris Leak, Tim Tebow.
Yeah, Tebow's better, but think about it. Their season was worse.
That's
They
what I'm
won
thinking.
the national title, and they got worse the next year as a team. Even though that was the year Tebow won it all, his stats were way better. I mean, he won the Heisman. But no, I mean, yeah, it is interesting. You got the T. Martin experience where you win it all his first year starting right after Peyton leaves. Yeah, I mean, there's no – it's an exact science. I mean, yeah, Texas could go out and win it all this year, and people are like, told you should have been starting over Quinn. We won it 2 out of the last 3 years.
Exactly. But like that's the other thing is that like when it comes to Texas, look at what I can't believe that I'm at this point where I feel like I have to defend Quinn on so many different levels because of what he was able to accomplish. And like I go against these trolls whenever I do radio in Houston. And I talk about how Quinn will forever be remembered in Austin for all of the right reasons. He'll go down as one of the best quarterbacks in terms of winning percentages because of what he was able to accomplish. He led his team to a conference.
Dude, to me, he's like Mark Sanchez at USC.
Right. But he led his team to a conference title in the Big 12 with a passing record in that game. He beat Alabama. He beat Michigan. He took his team to the college football playoff twice. He was a throw away from going to the national title over Washington. If he just connected with Adonai Mitchell, they're playing against Michigan. And he also was a drive away from taking that game to overtime against Ohio State. Like, instead of going into the transfer portal, here's what he's going to profit off of. Being a Longhorn quarterback with the collective that is in Austin. People are going to be like, we're going to have events with Quinn you were speaking at, signing events, autograph sessions. Like, he's going to be set up for that instead of leaving on a sour note. So it's like, I feel like in recent weeks, I have been defending Quinn like crazy because I believe Arch is a talented quarterback. But I also believe that Quinn never should have ever been in the situation where the conversation was, oh, we got to bench him for Arch Manning. Like, it was never happening unless an injury occurred. And you should know that.
He was bad against Georgia in the first game in Austin, and they kind of sat him down for a minute. Like, oh, I mean, it can't get any worse. Let's keep Arch, and Arch wasn't any better.
No, and that was the thing is that they're like, okay, it's very clear that the game is too fast for Arch. We got to go back to Quinn.
Yeah.
But, like, what if that happened in other games? Because remember, like, as much as Arch looked good, and I believe Arch is a top 10 quarterback going into this year. He's not my number one quarterback in the SEC. Very well could at the end of the season. Very well could. But going into the year, he's not. But, like, remember the games that he went up against. He was relevant against Mississippi State. The San Jose State game, I believe, was the other one, right? And then it was UTSA. He replaced Quinn. Like, it wasn't a Florida game. It wasn't Red River. It wasn't Georgia where he started. So Quinn had earned that right after all he had done for the program. Like, I'm sorry that Steve is out here trolling Longhorn fans, but like, it's the same thing as like when Paul Feinbaum last year said that Arch Manning was going to start over Quinn once they got to the SEC. Like, anybody with a functioning brain in actual Texas lore knew who was going to be the starter. It's just like going into this year, there'll be somebody who's like, oh, well, you know, what if Arch Manning isn't as Arch is 3 years into the system? Like, he's going to be a good quarterback. He may not be the reason why Texas is punching his ticket to a national championship. They may rely heavily on their defense. They may rely heavily on the run game with a healthy CJ Baxter. They may have a wide receiver that ends up just breaking way tackles left and right in the open field. But he's not going to be a bad quarterback. But Quinn last year was always meant to start, and he had earned that right.
Bear, think about this. It's an under the radar thing I just randomly thought of. Think about if Texas were to go win it, they have a big rushing game this year with the 2 running backs. And I think you do need that with what they're losing up front on the offensive line. They're going to need some creativity. How the blessing in disguise of CJ Baxter's injury last year elevated Trey Wisner to go kind of elevate his game and get a bunch of reps, where if you could have that 1-2 combo this year, and maybe that leads you to a national title if Kyle Flood can get that offensive line just to be even just somewhat close to what they've seen the last few years.
Slightly above average.
Help.
Slightly above average, you may end up being good enough to win a national title with the weaponry that you have. Honestly.
Because I think they're going to need someone besides Wisner to step up. Because Wisner's not that guy. Like I think we talked about a couple episodes ago. He's a guy I think he can go get the 2 to 3 yards. But when you're asking him to go get to the second, third level and make somebody miss, that's not really him, which is fine. You need different running back styles, but I think he needs a compliment, especially with what they've lost on offense, breaking in a new quarterback. I think anything that can aid Arch Manning's transition will be beneficial to Texas in 25.
I also just think that Jack Andrews may end up being one of the better tight ends that we have seen come through Austin in a hot minute. Like, I know that I'm really high on
Gunner, come on.
Okay, but like I personally think from a receiving standpoint, Jack Andrews may be the best receiving tight end that comes to the building. Now, full on well-rounded tight end, Jatavian Sanders, I think, takes the cake. I think Gunnar Helm takes the cake.
There's no way he's better than Maury Nyblack.
Well, bro, there's come on. Now you almost had me fall for that one too. Like, I'm sitting there like, why are we talking about Amari Nyblack?
Amari Nyblack, man.
He didn't do crap last year.
He didn't do anything.
He had like one catch. Like, review, hit subscribe. Make sure that you're following us on social media. Hey, Dave, you and I are both Alabama grads, so let's go ahead and talk about Alabama. They're killing it in recruiting. Like, there has been no fall off since the days of Nick Saban's retirement. Kalen DeBoer came on in and people said, oh, look at how this guy is going to have to embrace SEC recruiting. They're number 8 in recruiting right now. They just landed a 5-star and arguably the best edge rusher in the country in Xavier Griffin. They just landed a 5-star cornerback in Jordan Edmonds. They landed Zion Gibson, who's a 4-star talent. They also landed Xavier Crowell this past week. And they also have Max Sutter, who's another 4-star talent. Sam Utu is also signed. Jamarian Matthews is another edge they've already signed. And they have Chris Brooker, who is a top 15 offensive lineman. Dave, they haven't dropped off like at all. And I get it. You can say, well, Hugh Freeze, what he's been able to do is pretty promising. You got to remember that Alabama, when Kalen DeBoer was hired, people thought that the Saban tax was going to go away. Even if he just is still in the building, the way that Courtney Morgan has built an identity, the way that he's been able to sell the future of Alabama football with his overall recruiting prowess, but the results on the field, Alabama's killing it right now. Like, this has been the most confident I have felt in the version of Kalen DeBoer as a well-rounded coach that can work in the SEC since he was hired.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think they've taken a good strategy here. Still TBD, I think, not from this class. I think they're going to finish fine from a ranking standpoint, just because I think they're taking a kind of different – Alabama under Saban was very – they are too, obviously, this level side. Physical traits matter. That was like when you worked there, if they didn't fit when you were identifying kids back there in the student office – if they were an offensive lineman and they weren't at least 6'4", they were marked. I understand he maybe could be an undersized center, goes and plays and has a successful career. That happens. But it was size, speed, critical factors off that. They're going with a little more position flexibility here. A couple guys. I mean, even Xavier Griffin, who I love, kind of reminds me of the Kyle Hamilton kid. I know Kyle Hamilton was a safety, but the way Xavier Griffin can play with his hands down, the hand up, can play at both levels, first and second levels on defense. It kind of reminds me of that kind of on the opposite side of Kyle Hamilton could play, had the range to go play safety, could also go play in the box. One of the more elite physical frames. It's very versatile. Again, a lot of these guys are just very versatile. All the secondary guys, a lot of guys that could play corner or safety, just trying to figure it out. Chris Booker, you mentioned him, Bear. Kid could go play center. He could play interior guard if you really needed him out there. I know he's 6'3.5", but you go watch his film, his length makes up for that. So it's kind of like a sliding scale. Whereas back with Nick, that wouldn't happen, and they're not taking a 6'3.5" guy. They may swing out on all 5 different positions. Then I think towards the bottom of the class, they even got some guys that I think in the revenue sharing era, they're just going to probably give a scholarship to. They may not put them on the rev sharing plan from what I hear. Guys like Rael Kelly, safety they took from Cincinnati, Ohio, talked to somebody in Indiana, and they were high on that kid. And we're like, oh, Alabama took that kid. Like, and you go watch him, and you are like, yeah, he's kind of looks like a baby draft within his frame. Maybe he grows into it, gets in a strength and conditioning program, stays within the program for 2 to 3 years, develops. I think that's kind of it. They're being very flexible and hybrid throughout this entire class, whether that's how they're grading kids from a scale, like from what positions they're taking, versatile across the board. And I think they're even taking some risk on some guys that maybe they're not, maybe I shouldn't say risk, they're not putting a lot of stock in right now, but hey, if it works out, you know what? We got him on a scholarship. You know, if he turns out to be a good player, we'll get him on our revenue sharing plan. So I think some guys they have as development guys, but also, as you mentioned, Bear, some high-end dudes too. I like the Xavier Crowell kid they got from Jackson, Alabama, running back. So yeah, you're right. I mean, the only thing you see that you noticed, it was talked about last year a lot, this is a class that's kind of all over the country here. I mean, you got, again, naturally, Georgia, Alabama, they always sign kids from there, but you got Illinois, you got Nebraska, California late in Nick's career, they started getting there. Again, Indiana, again, Ohio, kind of a lot of Midwest feel. I think they're open to whatever it is, but it's, again, as you should with the Alabama brand. But no, you're right. They're doing some things right. I'd be interested to see what kind of character kids are taking on. Again, I did a study for a job I currently work at where you'd be surprised at how many people miss. And I think a lot of it's on the character of football and the love of the game and what it is. So, again, I don't know these kids from Adam, but I think that's something in the revenue sharing era now teams need to start really locking in on. And I think in the next 2 to 3 years when we have a bigger sample size, we'll see who's been doing their homework on the character, passion, love for the game, good teammate, good overall person bringing into your organization.
There's two things I want to point out real fast. Number one, I get it. Just because of you are committed today does not mean that you are fully committed to the program until you sign on the dotted line.
To be honest, Bear, June is the new day now. Like, kids don't really change. The high school kids lock their spots up.
I was listening to another content creator. I'll just say I was listening to Pate. And Pate was talking about this, and he's 100% right. Back in the day, when we were talking about National Signing Day, where they were putting on the hats and they were making their commitments in early January and February, that's changed to now June and July. They're going on these visits. They're going on these recruiting trips. They're making it known to Hayes, to anybody else out there. They're making it known to 247 Sports and On3.
July 4th is a big announcement.
This is where I'm at. This weekend, next weekend, going into SEC Media Days, you're seeing more and more players commit. But I think there's two things that you have to take away. Number one, you are not fully committed until you sign your letter of intent and show up on campus. I get it. I'm making sure that everyone knows that now, so we can become a bidding war. But the other thing is, in this new day and age of college football, I think that there is so much value into having the right director of player personnel and the right GM, whatever that role is. That has become critical, I think, to landing the right talent. Courtney Morgan, perfect example. Courtney Morgan has been crushing it. As good as I think Kalen DeBoer is as a coach, as good as I think that Ryan Grubb is going to add value to this offense to share an identity of, hey, we're not going away. This is what you can expect when you come play football at Bryant-Denny Stadium in a new era of Crimson Tide ball. Courtney Morgan and how he has continued to sell the identity of this program has been a blessing for Kalen DeBoer.
Bob Welton, too. He's still there. He's the NFL background, been there with Nick the whole. He's still there. He doesn't get talked about. That's who does the evaluations and stuff more so than Courtney does.
Will Myers at Georgia, I think, deserves a ton of credit for how he continues to land players left and right. I mean, again, who did they pick up recently? I mean, they already have like the number one quarterback in the country. They landed one of the best offensive tackles. Jordan Smith recently landed with them. Justice Fitzpatrick has been signed to them for a quick minute. James Johnson, the defensive lineman, signed with them recently. They're landing the right players, and they're doing their homework into figuring out what is the proper NIL deal, what is the proper version of what this role is for them. I think that carries so much significant weight, which is, again, why I'm very sold on Jim Nagy coming on into Oklahoma. I think that the way that he has studied the tape for so many different players at the Senior Bowl and knowing how we're finding these diamond in the rough kids that we think can put their status on the rails for the future of the NFL. That's what's going to help out with Oklahoma in the transfer portal. That's what's going to help out with them when it comes to them landing the right recruits from smaller locations. It's going to open up recruiting trails. I think that there is so much value at this point in having a good player personnel director, having a great GM, having the people who can do a little bit more of the behind the scenes stuff to lock in these guys long-term and make sure that they are fully invested. When they say they're committed, they're locked into this program. They're not going to be going on these recruiting visits. They're shutting things down. They're saying, I want to play for Alabama. I want to play for Georgia. I want to play for Oklahoma. I want to play for Texas. I want to play for South Carolina. I'm making sure that we land proper players. Yeah. And I think that once you land these type of names, the way you develop them is going to be huge. But the fact is that when you are a 5-star, if you can be developed properly, that 5-star potential is there for a reason.
But it's not even about your 5 stars, dude. You got to hit that middle class. Like, the 5 stars is easy. My wife could tell you if they're good. And also, like I mentioned, all things considered, you talk to any GM out there, all things considered, anyone on any of these teams' boards athletically can play there. The difference now is this isn't just a scholarship and a cost of attendance check that you're just throwing out there. This is a real dollar figures out here. Hypothetically, a kid signs a 2-year deal for $800,000. He's getting $400,000 a year. and he only plays in 5 games through a season and a half, and that new administrator, maybe he's a GM over all sports, or some teams like Arkansas going that route, is sitting there looking at the numbers, crunching the finances. Hey, why do we pay Dave Shumate? This guy's a complete clown. We paid him over $800,000 over the last 2 years. He's played in 4.5 games. Well, coach, he can't really. I mean, well, he doesn't like to practice when he's hurt. I mean, he's been cleared by the training staff numerous times. He just doesn't practice hard when he's hurt. He always comes up with some issue. You got to find out what kind of kid you're bringing into your programs. I think that's going to be to be determined, but I'm excited to look at the sample size here the next 3 to 4 years and see what teams hit on most of their kids, because it's not going to be about the talent. It's going to be about who and what individual you are bringing into this organization in a very – think about it. I just talked to an NFL scout on the phone the other day, Bear. They said this was the first draft class, it just got drafted, that they stopped asking about, hey, how will he handle money when he gets money in his hand? Because this is the first group of college kids that went through the whole NIL series. He said he was a Buck scout. He's like, dude, these guys have been on private jets. He's like, that ain't no big deal to them. He's like, dude, they've already been rich. They've already bought mom another house in college. How hungry is that guy to get to this level? Or is he just trying to rent us out for 2 to 3 years and extend his career just to get that check? Or is he dying to go? He's a starving dog and wants to go win. That's the biggest difference, I think, in college now. And we'll see who does that. Or are we just taking stars? Because just 5 stars itself doesn't.
Did you hear George Kittle's podcast when he was talking with that bunch of the boys? He said that there was a 7th-round pick that came in this past year. And one thing that they started to do was how in the years past they would talk about name, school, draft grade, draft round, signing bonus. They added in NIL. And one of the 7th-round picks said name, school, 7th-round pick, signing bonus for $28,000 NIL deal, $475,000. And everyone's just like, dude, why the hell did you leave school to go become a professional athlete when you could have cashed in for another year? And the thing is that his answer was, I've already handled money. I now need to handle the sport. And that's going to be something that I think is brought up more and more often when it comes to these things. Is he using us for a check, or is he using us to get us over the hump?
Yeah, no, you're right. I even heard NFL scouts say drug tests aren't as much as a thing. I mean, dude, I used to be an NFL liaison. I used to get that. How many failed drug tests? Yeah, they're like, dude, we've kind of stopped asking that. We're more like, what's his passion for the sport of football? Like, it's kind of more they leaned into that than like, how many drug tests has he failed?
Like, review, hit subscribe. Make sure you're following us on all social media channels. Over 750 people are watching right now. Dave, let's end this with talking about, I feel like H-Post is going to love this one.
Baby, put them up. H-Post ain't going to be happy.
Let's talk about Texas' schedule going into this season. Open up the year August 30th on the road. Week 1, very big announcement. We know that we are going to see College Game Day and Fox Sports. Is this going to be where also SEC Unfiltered starts the year? Major question, August 30th. San Jose State, then UTEP, then you get the bye week before you play Sam Houston State. Then you go travel to the Swamp against Florida. I've talked about this game a lot. I think it is one of the most slept on overall matchups in college football this year for so many different reasons. Red River Shootout in Dallas, Texas versus Oklahoma. We know what that game is going to be. Then you get to go travel on the road once again to play against Kentucky. Then you get to face off against Mississippi State. Welcome back home. You play against Vanderbilt. Then you go get a bye. Then you go on the road after a bye week to play Georgia, Arkansas, then close out your year at home against Texas A&M. So, Dave, I'm just going to throw us out there. What is the most winnable conference game in your opinion?
I think it's at Mississippi State. I just think Texas, again, they lost 4 starters on the defensive line, but I still think from what I've heard about Mississippi State, what I've heard about Mississippi State's offensive line, the front this year is a major concern. I still think Texas will have some major success against them. So I think that'll be their easiest game in conference.
I think Arkansas. And the reason why is because of this game is going to be played in Austin, and we will know, I think at this point, the status of Sam Pittman. Is Sam Pittman back for another year, which I'm not sure he will be. I don't know what's going to happen with the rest of the personnel. I have major questions when it comes to the secondary. I have major questions when it comes to the offensive line. I have major questions when it comes to the literally everything outside of the running game, Taylor Green. And I love what you have in terms of Taylor Green. I think Taylor Green is going to be freaking awesome still. I'm very high on him. But how much buy-in is there going to be with your team maybe finishing off the year 3-9 or 4-8? I feel like with Mississippi State, it's a home game. it's one that you're not going to lose. I mean, it's one you're not going to win, but you want to play a certain brand of football. And I don't think that Texas is going to be sleeping on Diego Pavia coming into their territory. They're going to be well awake for that matchup. I think Arkansas, only because of, I'm not sure that they're going to have a head coach at that point.
Yeah, and they go to LSU the week before. It's not a bad one either.
Most exciting game going into this year. Just one game that you are very pumped to watch in person. Or just not in person, but overall.
That I'm fired up about?
Yeah.
I'm going to go. I mean, you're right, Bear. I mean, I think there's something to be said. Yeah. I mean, Texas, Florida is a good one. I think you're probably going to go with that one. So I'm going to go opposite here. I don't know. I mean, I know we've seen it a lot recently, but I think it's kind of Texas's game. Like, it's obviously not a must win, but it's a status game a little bit at Georgia. All right. It's just kind of like a status game. Like, hey, man, you're going to let these guys beat you 3 times damn near in a calendar year. Like, it's kind of like, what's kind of your manhood? Can you drop your you know what's and go kind of defend yourself, say, hey, no, we're here to play with the top group of guys here. And again, I don't think it necessarily says Texas isn't. I think everybody agrees. Texas is a top 3 program in the conference right now. But it is kind of a manhood game right here. So I think kind of that one, it's an easy answer. I know we've seen it a lot, but say Texas would have beat Georgia in the SEC championship game last year, I'd probably go with the Texas at Florida one.
I'm not going Texas at Florida. I'm going to the one that we're probably going to, you, me, and Chris. And it's the one that we have talked about for a while. And it's the one that I believe is the greatest rivalry outside of the Iron Bowl. It's the Red River Shootout. It's 100% that game because of, imagine this for a second. I've already talked about both of these having slept on games. For Florida, let's say they were to lose that game to Florida. Well, you want to put belt to ass against Oklahoma in Dallas. You want to deliver as much pain as possible against your arch rival. And then if you're Oklahoma, if you were to beat Texas and you were to carry on that momentum going into the daunting schedule that comes after that matchup, I mean, you got to feel pretty good about your chances because I'm still really high on Texas's defense this year. I still think Texas is going to have really good weapons. I love what I have seen in terms of what I think that this unit can be with backups and with the rotational players. And I've talked about this a lot. I think that Texas is turning into what Alabama and Georgia were in terms of a city of, hey, we don't retool or rebuild. We just replace. There's just this mantra that's set in stone out in Austin that, hey, I get it. He's only played like 15 snaps. Well, he's going to be an All-American at the end of this year. Like, that's how I feel. But I just love this matchup. I think of this year because of John Mateer versus Arch Manning, what you're going to get in Ben Arbuckle's defense. Because I even told you last year, I was not high at all on the Seth Luttrell hire. I didn't think that was a good fit for what you had with Jackson Arnold. I love that you have a quarterback and an offense coordinator on both sides that have worked together for multiple years. So it's like, in my opinion, that game with that environment, with it being split down the middle and us being there, that to me is the most exciting game. Just far and away, because I think it will have the atmosphere and the trajectory of what it was supposed to be last season when I was hyping up what the rivalry always was.
Yeah.
3 must-win games in your opinion for Texas.
Must win. I'm gonna go Texas, Oklahoma. I'm gonna go Texas A&M, and I think Texas at Georgia. Those are mine. Again, for different reasons. I think Texas, Oklahoma, they're going to have to win one of those games. I mean, they need to win one of those big games. Again, it kind of speaks for itself. Texas A&M, I feel like Texas may have to win that game to get in late this year. I just think it's maybe a little bit of a feel, maybe to go to Atlanta too, if like it's going to have some kind of must-win opportunity. And I already explained the reason why Texas, Georgia earlier. I think it's kind of a manhood game. Losing those guys 3 times in one calendar year would kind of – I mean, Barry, you say they would be on Alabama and Georgia's level. I don't know if you could say that. If Georgia beat you, huh?
I don't think you can at that point.
I think this year kind of really tests that with Texas. If they go like 10-2, make the playoffs again, win a game in the playoffs, it's like, all right, that's 3 legitimate straight years in a row. Talk about what they lost on offense. So, yeah, I think that would be a total, reload at that point. But those would be my 3.
I'm not going to put Oklahoma on here only because of everyone knows that it's a must-win game. Like, for Oklahoma fans, it's a must-win game to beat Texas, and half the time you don't beat them. And it's a must-win game for you to beat Oklahoma, and half the time you don't beat them. So I'm not throwing that on there. Ohio State, and the reason I say that is because of they're breaking in a brand new quarterback. That's not the thing that they're breaking in. They're breaking in 2 brand new play callers in Matt Patricia defensively, and you also have Brian Hartline. So I'm sorry. Like, in my opinion, when you have Ryan Wingo, when you have a defense that's going to feature two of the better cornerbacks in the SEC with Jalen Gilbo moving on into the nickel, and if he's got to play on the outside, I think Malik Muhammad is going to be a really good player. You have Mookie Taft. You have two of the best pass rushers in Trey Moore and Colin Simmons. You should win that game. I get it's in the shoe. I understand that it's a non-conference matchup. It does nothing for you when it comes to the overall outlook on you going to Atlanta. But I just think it's a tone setter, especially with Arch Manning versus what you have in Julian.
You think if they lose this game, they don't go to the playoffs?
I don't think if they lose that. I don't think if they lose that game, but I feel way better about them losing two conference games and still being in the playoff versus them losing to Ohio State. That's
from a must-win standpoint. I still see a path Texas gets to the playoffs to the SEC championship, even with a loss to Ohio State. Again, I like Texas early, but
maybe. But I still think that's a must-win game. I throw in Georgia because of, like you said, it all comes down to just the fact of, hey, you gotta, if you want to prove or act like that you are one of the most complete teams in the SEC, if not college football, and you're right up there with Bama, and you're right up there with Georgia, and the way that they recruit and the way that they do too much stuff, like, to me, that's where I think that you separate yourself and you kind of prove and set the tone of, hey, we know how damn good we are. We know how special we can be with this staff, with our recruits, with the way that we're developing talent. And it gives you that bragging right because you also get to play that game in Sanford Stadium where Georgia doesn't lose. Like Georgia's lost one game there in the last 6 years. And it was an unranked South Carolina team. Like they don't lose when they play at Sanford Stadium. And then I go Texas A&M because of, again, Texas A&M has had a 12-year advantage over you when it comes to recruiting and when it comes to playing in the SEC and going up against this level of talent. And I just want to shove it down, and you just want to shove it down their throat by saying, hey, you had 12 years to be better than us and you still couldn't do it. What does that say about you? What does that say about your identity? What does that say about the way that you go about recruiting? And by the way, you can't blame it. Oh, well, last year you had the home field advantage. We come to our house and we beat you by double digits once again. Like, I just feel like that's one of those games going into the end of the season, whether they're 10-2 or whether they're 11-1, they just want to win that game because they want to shut up A&M. Like, that's just it.
No, yeah, I agree with you. I mean, so me and you had two of the three the same.
I want to change it up just a little bit. Because Oklahoma, I'm not putting it in there because if I tell an Oklahoma fan, hey, it's a must-win game against Texas, yeah, no shit. If I tell Texas fans it's a must-win game, yeah, no shit. Like, they know it is. And they know that also somebody's coming away with a loss. They're going to be disappointed. Ceiling.
We'll go 11-1. I think it's pretty easy. I think 11-1.
It's 11-1. They will lose a game. I don't know if it's week 1 to Ohio State. I don't know if it's in the swamp. I don't know if it's in Red River. But they will lose one game. They will. Because I think every team in college football this year is going to lose at least one game. That's just the bottom line for me. Floor.
I'm going to go 8-4 just because as much production as they have to replace and just say injury bug hits you, again, not Oklahoma level, but even a little bit close to that. You're getting a little bit too close to the stove and it burns you a little bit. Yeah, I mean, you're requiring a lot of freshmen to step up and play big minutes in an extended season. Yeah, I mean, I could see you lose to Ohio State, you lose at Florida, you lose to Oklahoma, and you lose at Georgia. I mean, those are 4 losses. Yeah, I mean, you have some injury bugs, things don't pan out. Certainly. I think Texas's ceiling floor is pretty, to me at least, pretty easy to define. I think 11-1 and 8-4. I
think 9-3. And the main reason why is because they're just gonna wake up for a game to where people maybe feel like, hey, this is the end. Like they had their run last year, they replaced him, and then they're gonna shut people up. Like, I just don't see a scenario like, let's say they lose to Florida and then they lose to Oklahoma. But then they're like, nope, we're not doing this. We're not going 9-3.
What if Texas 4-2 after their first 6?
So you're saying that losses to either
let's just say they lose to Ohio State and they split Florida, Oklahoma.
I still think 9-3. I don't think that they're gonna. I don't think they're gonna lose.
You feel good about them making the playoffs if they're 4-2 after their first 6?
I go 50-50.
You're essentially saying you got to win out.
That Georgia game. Okay, here'd be the thing. Let's say that you were
Georgia or A&M.
Yeah, let's beat A&M, but you lose to Georgia, by 3. I think that there's enough backing with a win over Ohio State because you have to beat either.
I said loss to Ohio State. Oh, saying if it is a win.
No, but I'm saying let's say they beat Ohio State.
Yeah,
they beat Ohio State. and their losses are to Georgia, Oklahoma, and Florida. Let's say that also Florida is 9-3, or they're 10-2. Let's say that Oklahoma is 9-3, or they're 10-2, and Georgia's in the college football playoff. Those are 3 enough convincing losses to me to where I can say, you know what? If we are picking a 9-3 team, and Texas A&M was ranked when you played them, and Vanderbilt maybe was ranked when you played them, and who the hell knows whether Florida what they are or Oklahoma what they are, it's good enough to get you in the playoff. Like, I could still see that.
At 9-3, yeah,
crazy, but I feel like it's possible.
No, you're right, Bear. Crazier things have happened. They probably need Ohio State to win the Big Ten, like you said, Oklahoma and Florida to hit the over on a Vegas over-under standpoint and be pretty good.
But I think 9-3 is their floor because I don't see them losing Ohio State, Georgia, Oklahoma, and Florida. I see them potentially losing 3 of those games, but I don't see them losing 4. Now, I don't know when that happens. I don't know if that is because of it's a road game, they're too tired. Maybe, again, an injury occurs because that's college football. You can't predict those things. But I do think that they will be better than this 9, and I think that they will be better than 8-4. There's just no way I can buy into that outside of that.
Yeah.
All right. We did an hour and 20 minutes. We will be back here on Thursday. We will have multiple things to talk about. A Texas A&M schedule. What are they going to be? Because apparently I hate A&M. I think they suck, which I really don't. But you never know. There's a lot of teams that I'm also very high on. We got a bunch of other content coming your way. If you haven't already, like the video, hit the ring notification, subscribe to the channel. That way you keep up with everything that we're doing here because we have more content coming on out. July 1st is tomorrow, which means we are entering college football season. We're going to have predictions. We're going to have must-win games. We're going to have conference matchups. We're going to have win-loss records. We're going to have content on SEC Media Days, whatever it is. So make sure that you are subscribed to the channel. Make sure that also the best way to stay subscribed to everything that we're posting and talking about at Dave Shumate SEC, at Mr. Cole Thompson, at SEC Unfiltered. Make sure you download the podcast version of the show. And if you haven't already, check out all of our great work found at secunfiltered.com. For Dave Shumate, I'm Cole Thompson. Have a good start to your week. Have a great rest of your night. We will see you on Thursday. And remember, you only live life once, so live it to the freaking fullest. Peace.